Bismillah Rahman and Raheem. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. Today we will be looking at the last paragraph or the last few verses of Surah Hashr, and these verses actually form a very perfect introduction to the persona of God. So we just cannot know the being of God, but what we can know of God is His attributes and His practices. And there's no other place in the Quran more comprehensive than the one that we're just going to study, which introduces God in a very elaborate way, in a very comprehensive way, and the way that this is done is that all His major attributes are discussed here, and they are stated in a certain sequence. So we will begin with verse 22. It says, "Huwa Allahu allazi la ilaha illahu alimul ghaibi wa shahada huwa ar-Rahman ar-Raheem. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون." Uh, they should always keep in mind that it is God besides whom there is no deity, knower of the unseen and the seen. He is the most compassionate, the ever merciful. He is the very God besides whom there is no deity, the sovereign Lord, the holy, the embodiment of peace, the giver of tranquility, the guardian, the mighty, the extremely powerful, the most high. Exalted is God above all what they state as partners. The next verse reads in a similar vein, هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. Is God, the designer, the creator, the shaper. All good names are His. All that is in the heavens and the earth glorify Him. And He is the mighty, the wise. So if you look at the starting point of these attributes, they begin with none other than the most important of all His attributes, and that is He is the one and only, and there is no other deity except Him. So that is why the word Allah is known as the personal noun of God. This is His name, the way we know it. And the very first verse, as you can see, the same sentence is repeated in the next verse as well. But keeping in mind the importance of the doctrine of Tawheed or monotheism, this sentence is stated twice. So, "Huwa Allahu allazi la ilaha illahu," that He is the one besides whom there is no deity. And the reason that you'll find the expression of Tawheed or the assertion of Tawheed so rampant in the Quran is because two-thirds of the Quran, as you might know, was revealed in Mecca, where the addressees were the idolaters of Arabia. They professed in more than one God. Of course, they did profess God to be the supreme God, but they said, or they believed that the angels were His daughters, and they believed that they were deities as well, and that if they could win their favor, then these angels on the day of judgment would procure them His nearness, and also the intercession of these angels would actually guarantee them that they will receive a very high place in paradise. So that is why you'll find the creed of monotheism being discussed a lot in the Quran. So when the Prophet moved to Medina, we know that his addressees were basically the people of the book. Yes, we do have the Aus and the Khazraj tribes as well, but also the idolaters as well. But in more, the majority were these people of the book found in Medina, and they actually believed in one God, and so therefore it was not a question as much as was the question with the people, with the idolaters, that this discussion of one God had taken place. With the people of the book, the discussion was more regarding the nature of how they believed in one God. We know that Christians, for example, although they believed in the Holy Trinity, which they themselves said was a form of monotheism, the Quran did not accept this. But the fact is that they were introduced in the Quran and as monotheists. So in spite of this very vehement form of polytheism, in which they would regard Jesus to be the Son of God, the Almighty, and the Quran still accorded them with the status of monotheists, albeit deviant monotheists, because they were the ones who, in spite of believing in one God, had this very crooked concept of Trinity, in which God was represented in three Godheads. So this has to be clearly understood, that the reason the Quran mentions the creed of Tawheed so much, of course, is simply because not only the idolaters of Mecca, they were incriminated with very, something of very heathen forms of shirk and or polytheism, but the people of the book as well, they were deviant monotheists. So, Alimul Ghaibi wa Shahada, which means that he is someone who knows the seen and the unseen. And the seen and the unseen, of course, is with respect to human beings. What we see and what we don't see is not something that God will not see or God cannot see. So, the past or the future, which we are not able to see, it is known to him. He knows what is before us, he knows what is behind us, he has complete knowledge. So that is why he is a perfect he's a perfect being who can take accountability from all of us, because he knows our past, he knows our future, he knows people who were in the past, he knows the people who are going to come in the future, and everything that's going to happen or happen in the past or is going to happen in the future is in his knowledge. So Alimul Ghaibi wa Shahada actually speaks of the fact that his knowledge is all embracing. Nothing is beyond that his knowledge. And then Huwa Rahman and Raheem, he is the most compassionate and the ever merciful. So Rahman and Raheem, as you can see, are very close in their roots. The word Raham is their root word, but there is a difference between Rahman and Raheem. So Rahman is someone in whose mercy there is a lot of jubilation, we can say, or there's a lot of energy and vibrancy. And Raheem is someone in whose mercy there is consistency. So Rahman speaks of the nature of this Reham, which means that it gushes forth like a fountain, and Raheem refers to the fact that although this Rahma gushes forth like a fountain, it's not going to dissipate, it's not going to just finish, it is persistent, it is consistent, and shall be everlasting. So that is how Raheem actually complements Rahman. And then, as you can see, the phrase of Tawheed or monotheism is repeated once again in the very next verse. Wallahu allazi la ilaha illahu, he is the very God besides whom there is no deity. And then we come to the sequence of his attributes mentioned one after the other. And as I said earlier, there's not a single place in the Quran other than this in which you'll find all these attributes or the major attributes of God in one place. So that is why this is a very beautiful and a very comprehensive introduction to the person of God. So the first thing which is mentioned is that he is Al-Malik, which means he is the sovereign, he is the king, and there is no one except him who is going to govern this universe. He is governing this universe now. He is not someone who has left it to his angels or to his deputies, or he's not dependent on them. He is the king. And the reason that this attribute had to be highlighted was because there were people who thought that, well, once God has made this universe, he has created this universe, he's now resting, and now he has consigned the affairs of his universe to his deputy. So this misconception has been dispelled by this attribute, by the words that he is the king, he is still the king, and he's going to stay the king, he is governing the whole universe. And then the next attribute mentioned is Al-Quddus. So Al-Quddus means someone who is holy, someone who is extremely pure. And here the mention of this word holy, or someone who is extremely pure, someone who has this sanctity in him, is like a motivation, is like inspiration that he would like us to also create in our own selves, to be pure individuals from inside. So remember, as we know that the Old Testament speaks of this fact that God has created human beings in his own image. So that actually means that many attributes that God has are the ones that are replicated in human beings, although in a very small sense. But the reason that this has been said is that human beings should take cue from the Almighty, and the attributes that he has, they should try to emulate. I mean, of course, they cannot emulate these attributes, but at least they should try to have a cue from these attributes and do the same with their own selves. And that is why The Bible says that the Almighty has created human beings in His own image because He wants them to advance in these attributes as much as is possible. So, just as God is Al Quddus, He is holy, He's pure, so He wants His creation, the human beings that He's created, to be pure as well. So, that is why Al Quddus is mentioned. And the next thing which is mentioned is As-Salam. So, As-Salam means that He is the embodiment of peace. So the embodiment of peace, which means that you can seek peace in Him, He gives peace, and therefore human beings also must be embodiments of peace in their own regard, in their own respect. They must not in any way be harmful to people. So just as God is peace for the entire universe, human beings are also expected to follow suit, and they should also be peaceful in themselves and be those who create peace and shun anything which is against peace. And then the next attribute which is mentioned is Al-Mu'min. So Al-Mu'min means someone who gives Amin, or gives tranquility. Or in other words, it's like an extension of the previous attribute, that he is someone who gives Amin, who gives peace, who gives tranquility, who creates this tranquility. So if he is someone who creates the tranquility, then the foremost thing that should result is in human beings is that they should try to come close to God, because see, if you would like to have this tranquility in your own selves, so God is there to give you this tranquility. He is the giver of tranquility. He is Al-Mu'min. But the thing is that we have to be receivers of this tranquility. We have to be receivers of God's peace. And this can only happen when we come close to God, we attach ourselves to God, and there's no better a month to come closer to God than the month that we are passing through, the holy month of Ramadan, in which through reading the Quran, through various acts of charity, we can come ever close to God. So He is Al-Mu'min. He is someone who gives this Aman, who gives this peace to human beings, so that we seek this peace from Him. And then Al-Muhaymin. So Al-Muhaymin means He is the guardian. He is the protector. He is looking after us. He is always there when we would like Him to be there. Yes, there could be instances in which we are put through certain trials, and that is again something that they only happen with permission of God. But other than that, if God is our protector, then we should not go to anyone else to seek this protection, because He is Al-Muhaymin. He is our protector, and we must turn to Him for protection. The next attribute mentioned is Al-Aziz. Al-Aziz means someone who is extremely mighty. So Al-Aziz and Al-Jabbar, both they are mentioned, and they work in tandem, so to speak. That the meaning of both being that the Almighty, He is the Almighty and He is extremely powerful, which means that if He was able to create this universe once, it's not going to be difficult for Him to create it again. The might and the power that He possesses is something from which we should not be in any way expect less than that. And this again has been stated because the idolaters of Mecca, they would think that how can the Almighty create all this once it disappears from earth? When we die and we decay and become bones, how can we be raised to life once again? So Al-Aziz and Al-Jabbar, working in tandem, that he's the Almighty and He is the extremely powerful. It's not difficult for Him to bring back people to life and recreate this universe once it gets destroyed at the Day of Judgment. Al-Mutakabbir. So Al-Mutakabbir, of course, means the most high. The word Takabbur, of course, means arrogance, and it is a big flaw and a defect if human beings are overcome with Takabbur. But for the Almighty, it is a reality. So for Him to be Al-Mutakabbir is something that is absolute reality, that He is the most high. So if He says He is the most high, then this is the actual truth. Subhanallah amma yushrikun, which means that exalted is God above what they state as partners, which means that He does not have partners. He is the one and only. And if they ascribe partners to Him, then it is their misfortune, it is their wretchedness. They don't have any proof for this, but they do it deliberately. And we know that it was in the case of the idolaters of Arabia. The Quran says that the truth had become absolutely apparent to them. It had been conclusively conveyed to them that there is no God but God, and the deities that they ascribe as partners to God, they have no existence. But in spite of being convinced, they were not willing to give up this belief, and they would say that we are following the ways of our forefathers. So the Quran says that this is something that they are doing out of this is something that is beyond logic and defies logic. That how can they do something which they believe to be incorrect merely because they found out their own forefathers to be doing something like that. And then we have this final verse, something which says a lot about the Almighty and His planning, which says, "Wallahul khaliqul bari'ul musawwir," that He is God, the designer, the creator, the shaper. Now, if you look at these three steps, basically they are the three steps that we also undertake when we create something. So when we design something, we perfect it, and when we shape it. So the Almighty is the creator who not only designs but creates and then perfects whatever He intends to do. And then the Quran says, "Lahul asma'ul husna," that all good names are His. You can ask Him, you can call Him by any name that you'd like to. All good names belong to Him. Yusabbihu lahu ma fis samawati wal earth. All that is in the heavens and the earth glorify Him. And of course, that is something that we also know, that everything in this universe is glorifying Him in some form or the other. Wahuwal Azizul Hakim. Now, both these attributes have been mentioned earlier as well, but the surah ends with these attributes as well, that He is mighty, He's powerful, and also He's wise. His wisdom is something that will not let His might and His power do something which is destructive. His wisdom is always going to shape the power and make it do what should be done accordingly as per His own plans. So with this we come to an end to this discussion of today's passage, and now we can go over to the Q&A session.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Some house rules. Please make sure that your questions pertain to the session that we've had today, discussed today. In the end, if we have time left, I'll open the forum up for open questions. But for right now, please stay on topic. Shabnam, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर। ये जो हमने शुरू में ही आज जो अल्लाह ताला के एट्रीब्यूट्स पढ़े, रहमान और रहीम, रहमत से हैं दोनों, आई डू अंडरस्टैंड। लेकिन सर मैंने एक इसकी तफसीर ये भी सुनी है कि रहमत जो रहमान है, ये रहमत का ताल्लुक दुनिया से है कि अल्लाह की रहमत आम है इसमें, और रहीम के उसकी हमेशा की रहमत है तो उसका ताल्लुक आखिरत से है जो कि सिर्फ मोमिनीन के लिए होगी। तो सर विच वन इज द क्लोजर राइट
नहीं, देखिए ये तो एक आई डोंट नो, ये जैसे कहते हैं ना कि मंतिक है जो बना दी गई है, वरना जबान के एतबार से लिंग्विस्टिकली, जैसे मैंने कहा, रहमान जो है ये मुबालगे का सीगा है, इसमें जोश पाया जाता है। सो रहमान ये बताता है कि अल्लाह ताला की रहमत में एक जोश है, वो चाहता है कि अपने रहम को हर जगह निशावर करे। और रहीम ये बताता है कि उसकी जो रहमत है, वो जब किसी चीज में जोश होता है तो इसका इम्कान होता है कि वो खत्म हो जाए। तो रहीम ये बताता है कि उसकी जो रहमत है ये अबदी है, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो जोश में आके उसकी उसका जो रहम है वो कन्फाइंड है या वो खत्म हो जाएगा। तो पहला जो लफ्ज है वो रहम के जोश को बयान कर रहा है, और जो दूसरा लफ्ज है वो रहम के तसलसल को बयान कर रहा है। तो ये दोनों मिलके ये बता रहे हैं कि अल्लाह ताला की जो जात के अंदर जो रहमत का पहलू है ये कैसा है।
थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. There are no more raised hands. So I have a question. God's attribute is Reham. A mother's womb is also called Reham. Is there a connection between the two?
Yes, that's also, the word is the same. So the womb, of course, refers to Raham, because that is the place where, so to speak, the manifestation of mercy also takes place because of the creation of a human being, or the fact that the fetus is fertilized there, is placed there. So yes, they have this connectivity.
Okay. Then I have a question in the chat, Dr. Saleem. Please tell relevance with previous ayah about Quran being revealed on mountain.
So you see, the previous paragraph, it says, "Law anzalna hazal Qur'an ala jabalin." So it's not that this last paragraph or this last set of verses is directly related to the last verse. Remember, this is not how the Quran works. It's not like a linear connection in which every verse is connected to a previous verse. It's like a paragraph being connected to a previous paragraph. So a whole set of verses being connected to the next set of verses. And that is precisely what we have to understand. So we need to understand that as far as the Quran is concerned, the connection is not always linear. It's not that every single verse is going to be connected to the next verse. As I said, it's like a paragraph being connected to the previous paragraph. So the previous paragraph was actually telling us that as far as God is concerned, he is someone, when he reveals the Quran, he has a very important mission for that, and that is that it should be accepted. And people who deny the Quran or in any way do not accept the Quran, about them it is said, then their hearts have become so hard that they are not going to in any way accept it. And then it is said that look at the intensity of the Quran, that had it been revealed on a mountain, لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا, you would have seen that it would have just been shattered to pieces. And this is what even an inanimate object would have done. But look at the hearts of these people who have become so hard that they do not open themselves up to the message of the Quran.
Okay, thank you. Umar, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
السلام علیکم سر، میں نے پوچھنا تھا کہ جو اللہ تعالیٰ کے پیارے نام ہیں، ان کو کیا ہمیں ان کا ورد کرنا چاہیے اور کس طرح کرنا چاہیے؟ اور اسی سے ریلیٹڈ کویسچن ہے کہ وہ جو باغ کا ذکر ہے قرآن مجید میں، اس میں سر وہ انہوں نے انشاءاللہ جو نہیں کہا، وہ اس میں اس کا کیا سیاق و سباق ہے؟ تھینک یو۔
دیکھیے، دو الگ الگ باتیں ہیں۔ جہاں تک اس کا تعلق ہے اللہ تعالیٰ کے ناموں کا، تو اللہ تعالیٰ کے جو نام ہیں وہ تو کوئی میننگ فل سینٹینس میں اگر آپ ان کا ذکر کریں گے تو کوئی فائدہ ہوگا نا۔ اگر میں کہوں رحمان 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 تو اس کا کوئی مطلب نہیں ہے۔ یہ ایسے ہی جیسے میں کہوں عمر عمر عمر، تو آپ مجھ سے پوچھیں گے بھائی اگلا جملہ تو کہو۔ تو اس لیے میننگ فل سینٹینس کہنا چاہیے۔ مثلا ہم یہ کہیں کہ اے اللہ ہماری مدد کر، یا رحمان، یعنی کوئی آگے سینٹینس بولیں گے جس میں اصل میں رحمان کو کوئی آپ کچھ کہیں گے نا، آگے دعا مانگیں گے۔ تو محض ناموں کا ورد کرنا جو ہے یہ ایک میننگ لیس چیز ہے، اور ہمارے ہاں یہ مشہور ہو گئی ہے۔ اصل چیز یہ ہے کہ آپ اللہ تعالیٰ کو پکاریں تو ایک میننگ فل سینٹینس میں پکاریں۔ اور وہ جو سورہ کہف میں آپ کہہ رہے ہیں جہاں پہ باغ والوں کا ذکر ہوا ہے، تو وہاں ظاہر ہے اس چیز کا ذکر آیا کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے ہمیں یہ بتایا ہے کہ جب بھی آپ مستقبل کے حوالے سے کسی فیصلے کا اظہار کریں تو کبھی اس کو انشاءاللہ کے بغیر اس کا اظہار نہ کریں، کیونکہ آپ تو اپنے لحاظ سے ایک فیصلہ کر رہے ہیں اور خدا کا فیصلہ ہو سکتا ہے اس سے مختلف ہو۔ چنانچہ آپ نے اگر کوئی مستقبل کے بارے میں یہ کہنا ہے کہ میں یہ کام میں نے کرنا ہے یا ہونا ہے، تو جیسے ہماری روایت بھی ہے، ہم ہمیشہ کہتے ہیں انشاءاللہ، تو انشاءاللہ کے ساتھ اگر آپ یہ کہیں گے تو اس کام کے بارے میں برکت بھی ہوگی، اور اس میں یہ عاجزی کا بھی اظہار ہوگا کہ اگر اللہ نے چاہا تو میں یہ کام کر لوں گا۔
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Hina Zaidi, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum all. I have a question about the Surah Kahf. Like جہاں پہ جو اصحاب کہف تھے وہ سو جاتے ہیں، and then like when they wake up they had a dog. So اسلام میں اس بات کے بارے میں کہا گیا کہ like کتا نجس ہوتا ہے، like you cannot have a pet dog. اور کچھ لوگوں کا یہ، کچھ scholars یہ کہتے ہیں کہ you can have a pet dog but that could be outside from your house. And some people, like somebody asked me the question.
I understand. I do understand this question. I think کہ ہمارے ہاں جو کتے ہیں وہ اسلامی اور مسلمانوں کی تاریخ میں سب سے مظلوم جانور ہیں، اور ان کے بارے میں ایک شدید غلط فہمی ہے کہ جیسے وہ ناپاک ہوتے ہیں یا نجس ہوتے ہیں، ان کو آپ گھر میں نہیں رکھ سکتے۔ ایسی ہرگز کوئی بات نہیں ہے۔ قرآن مجید میں تو اس سے الٹ آیا ہے کہ آپ شکار کے کتوں سے اگر شکار کرتے ہیں تو ان کا جو سلائیوا ہے ظاہر ہے وہ شکار کرے گا، آپ اللہ کا نام لے کے کتے کو چھوڑیں گے تو وہ جس جانور کو وہ ہنٹ کر رہے ہیں اس پہ ان کا وہ سلائیوا لگے گا۔ اور قرآن نے یہ کہا ہے کہ ان کے اگر آپ بسم اللہ پڑھ کے شکار کو چھوڑیں گے تو یہ اگر وہ شکار وہ کر لیتا ہے جانور، اور کتا شکار کر لیتا ہے، وہ جانور اگر شکار ہو جاتا ہے اور کتا اسے خود نہیں کھاتا تو وہ حلال تصور ہوگا۔ تو قرآن تو بالکل الٹ تصویر دے رہا ہے۔ یہ اصل میں جو کتوں کے نجس ہونے کی یا ناپاک ہونے کی جو کانسیپٹ ہے، یہ بعض حدیثوں کو غلط سمجھنے کی وجہ سے پیدا ہوا ہے۔ میں بہت تفصیل سے اس پہ ہم پہلے بھی گفتگو کر چکے ہیں، لیکن مختصراً یہ ہے کہ ایک حدیث یہ کہتی ہے کہ کتا اگر کسی پیالی میں منہ مارے تو آپ اس کو اچھی طرح دھوئیں اور آخری مرتبہ رگڑ کے مٹی سے صاف کریں۔ اس کو اگر آپ قرآن کی روشنی میں دیکھیں گے تو صاف معلوم ہوگا کہ یہاں ایک عام کتے کا ذکر نہیں ہے، بلکہ ایک ریبٹ ڈاگ کا، جس کو ریبیز تھی، جس کے بارے میں پتہ ہے کہ وہ کنٹیجیس ہوتی ہے، جہاں وہ منہ مارے گا تو وہ ٹرانسمٹ ہو سکتی ہے ڈیزیز، تو یہ اس کتے کا وہاں ذکر ہے۔ اسی طرح سے جو ذکر آتا ہے کہ فرشتہ ان گھروں میں داخل نہیں ہوں گے جہاں پہ کتے ہوں گے، تو اس کو بھی اگر آپ ٹریس کریں گے تو یہ ایک خاص موقع کی بات ہے، اور یہ صرف ایک واقعہ ہے کہ حضرت جبریل جو تھے وہ نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے پاس انہوں نے آنا تھا، وہ نہیں آئے، اور جب پوچھا گیا تو انہوں نے کہا میں اس لیے نہیں آیا تھا کہ آپ کے تخت کے نیچے آپ جہاں بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں وہاں پہ ایک کتا ہے جو اس نے گن کیا ہوا تھا، اور اس وجہ سے میری طبیعت نہیں مانی کہ میں وہاں آؤں گا۔ تو اس چیز کو لوگوں نے ایکسٹینڈ کر دیا اور جیسے کہہ دیا کہ ہر طرح کے جو فرشتے ہیں وہ داخل نہیں ہوتے، ये सिर्फ ये बताता है कि कुत्ते अगर वो प्रॉपरली ट्रेंड हैं, घर में कोई गंद नहीं मचा रहे, दे हैव बीन पॉटी ट्रेंड, तो जैसे सफाई किसी को बिल्ली रख सकती है, वो कुत्ता भी रख सकता है। तो आप समझ लीजिए कि अपनी प्योरिटी में जो हैसियत कुत्ते की है वही बिल्ली की है। ये सिर्फ कुरानी मजीद की इस अहमियत को ना समझने में, कुरान तो खुद कहता है कि कुत्ते का लुआब जो है वो शिकार जो है, जाहिर है जब वो पकड़ेगा अपने दांतों से तो उसका लुआब तो लगेगा, उसका सलाइवा लगेगा। तो अगर वो इम्प्योर होता तो ये कैसे अल्लाह ताला इसको गवारा करते। और दूसरा ये कि चूंकि रवायतों में ये आ गया है, तो दोनों रवायतें जो बता रही हैं इसकी मैंने आपके सामने तौजीह पेश की है, बताया है कि ये खास मौका और महल है। चुनांचे अगर आपने कुत्ते को प्रॉपर ट्रेन किया हुआ है तो आप घर के अंदर भी रख सकते हैं उसको।
Okay, and I'll be appreciated like if you have something this in English, so I can forward it to some people. Like, yeah.
Yes, so I think Bisma will give you the links. We have some lectures on this. We have some written material also, so maybe you can have that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
I'll
you,
forward it.
Jazakallah.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Thank you. Shabnam, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
ओके, थैंक यू सर। ये अभी आपने बताया कि हमें अल्लाह के नामों का ऐसे ही विर्द नहीं करना चाहिए। सर जैसे मैंने कुछ सुना हुआ है कि जैसे है या सलामू या मोमिनु या अल्लाह या वली या वाली या नसीर, लाइक सर हम जो या के साथ उन्हें पुकारें, तो जो एट्रीब्यूट्स विर्द कर रहे हैं हम इनडायरेक्टली अल्लाह से जो एट्रीब्यूट्स कर रहे हैं हम अल्लाह से वो मांग रहे हैं, अल्लाह हमारी मदद फरमा, हमारी वली वाली
वो
या
फिर
नसीर
आपको
हमें
फिर
सलाम।
जुमला कहना चाहिए। देखिए फिर कहना चाहिए कि या सलाम, या सलामती वाले हम पे सलामती भेज, वरना या सलाम तो कोई
या
मतलब नहीं है
सलामू
ना।
या मोमिनु या अल्लाह, ये इस तरह नहीं कहना चाहिए।
हाँ, यानी आप देखिए कोई आपको एक ऐसा जुमला बोलना चाहिए जिसका कोई मतलब हो। अगर आप
राइट सर।
महज नाम को पुकारेंगे तो उससे कोई मतलब नहीं ना बनेगा। आपको
सर हम
एक मीनिंग
इनडायरेक्टली अल्लाह से वो मांग रहे हैं ना, जो एट्रीब्यूट हम उन्हें पुकार
तो
रहे
वो
हैं
कहना चाहिए ना। आप ये
या अल्लाह।
कहें कि ए सलामती वाले हमें सलामती दे।
राइट सर, ठीक है सर,
Thank
थैंक यू
you.
सर।
Zishan, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Shehzad sir. This is Ishan Rahat Qureshi. So my question was that you just termed that the people of the book are known as are called monotheists in the Quran. So
Right.
who are the people that are called Mushrikeen in Quran? Thank you.
So the Mushrikeen are the people who are called the idolaters of Arabia, the people who are the Quraysh, the Bani Ismail. You might have heard of them. And they are the inhabitants of the original inhabitants of Arabia, and they had adopted polytheism as a religion for themselves. I mean, they had willfully, deliberately adopted polytheism as a religion, and they said that God is more than one, and that there are other deities besides God who to whom we'll also pay our regards and we'll worship. And most of these deities would be the angels. They would regard angels to be daughters of God, and they would say that if we would worship these angels, then on the day of judgment they will secure us the nearness of God. So they were like partners of God. But as far as Christians were concerned, they believed in one God. But this belief was a rather crooked one, and they said that God is one, but He manifests Himself into three dimensions: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, which they call the Holy Trinity. So, I mean, it's like saying that they believed in one God, but the nature of this belief was rather a deviant one. It's much like how many Muslims today, they believe in one God, but they still go to various mausoleums and various places where they ask for someone who's a saint may be buried there, and ask for his help to secure the help of God. So just as there are many Muslims who are incriminated with forms of polytheism, so what was the case with the Christians. And that is precisely why you'll find that there is not a single instance in the Quran, not one instance in which the Christians are called polytheists. They are always referred to as monotheists.
Kuffar are the same as Mushrikeen?
Kuffar means someone who deliberately denies. So this could be amongst the Mushrikeen, and this could be amongst the people of the book. So you must make a distinction between all these terms. So kuffar means kafir, it's the plural of kafir, and kafir means a person who intentionally denies the truth, which means that he is convinced of the truth, of certain truth, but he does not accept it. So this category can exist among the mushrikun and can also exist among the people of the book.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. We have 3 hands raised. Please keep your questions short so we can give everybody a chance. Salman Aziz, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
So there's a hadith about these ayat that if you recite them, there'll be 70,000 angels praying for your maghfirah, and if you die, you'll die as a shaheed, sir. Please comment on this hadith.
Well, I'm not sure how this can be something that can earn the death of a martyr. And I think that there has been some mix-up in this narration. There has to be some other thing that might have been missing. Yes, I don't feel any thing against the fact that the first part of the hadith, which says that such a beautiful verse that when you recite these verses, it's like the angels who pray for you, and there could be 70,000 or more or less. That's fine. But dying the death of a martyr, I don't have serious reservations. I think the second part of this narrative is there something either missing or has been wrongly reported.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I have two more raised hands. Should I ask, or do you want
Yes,
me
please
to?
go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Imran Khan, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर। अभी सर आपने पिछले दिनों जो एक दो सवाल ज़कात के बारे में जवाब दिया कि अगर आपका टैक्स कट गया तो आप अपनी ज़कात उसमें से डिडक्ट करके बैलेंस पे कर दें। तो मेरा एक सवाल था सर, आमदन के ऊपर एक उशर भी होता है। हम उशर तो नहीं, हम अपनी एक सैलरीड क्लास के ऊपर 10% वो अपनी सैलरी से हर महीने देगा। तो क्या वो जो टैक्स कटा है उसमें से उशर भी माइनस करके और ज़कात फिर कैलकुलेट करेंगे? इट इज़ द टैक्स इज़ इक्वल टू ज़कात। थैंक यू।
उशर अलग चीज़ है। उशर तो असल में एग्रीकल्चरल इनकम पे आयद होता है और नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के ज़माने में आयद हुआ है। मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया था कि इस मौजू पे एक छोटा सा लेक्चर है जो मेरे ख्याल है मैंने कल या परसों हमने ग्रुप में पोस्ट भी किया है। ये दोनों चीज़ें आप मिक्सअप करें, मुझे थोड़ी तफसील करनी पड़ेगी, हमारे पास इस वक्त टाइम कम है। आप काइंडली उसको सुन लीजिए। उसमें मैंने ये बताया है कि तीनों चीज़ें अलग अलग हैं और किस तरह से रिलेट होती हैं टैक्स से आजकल।
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Samina, Naeem, please unmute your mic and ask your question. This is the last question.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। जी, Dr. Sahab, you just mentioned Bani Israel. So my understanding of Bani Israel is that they were basically Jews and Christians.
Correct.
Jews as well.
So I
And
was
Jews
referring to Bani
were
Ismail.
monotheists.
I was referring to the Bani Ismail, not the Bani Israel actually. So Bani Ismail are the ones who are called the Mushrikeen or the original inhabitants of Arabia. So they are Bani
Okay.
Ismail, not yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Saleem. Thank you for a wonderful session, and inshallah, we'll be wrapping up now and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Thank you so much. Khuda Hafiz.